The police carried out an extensive operation that involved the FBI hostage rescue squad who tried to talk the suspect out of the boat where he was hiding. They eventually decided that they would go in and take him out.
It is a long road to recovery, and I think people are just starting to realise now what lays ahead. The authorities here, the mayors, the governors, the president, no one's pulling any punches here, that this has been a devastating storm and there is a long way to go.
Well, the case was brought by an 83-year-old New York woman called Edie Windsor, who is here with us in Washington, D.C. now. She's been challenging the federal government, and I'd like to introduce you to one of her lawyers on the bench in the court this morning. This is James Essex, a lawyer for the American Civil Liberties Union, but most importantly, Edie Windsor's counsel.
They look like anyone else in the crowd, walking near the finish line of Monday's Boston Marathon. But these two individuals have just become the most wanted men in America. The revelation of the two suspects gives the investigation a new sense of urgency, but it's a calculated risk for the FBI.
6 days a week you'll find him in the mouth of the Patuxent River, where it spills into Chesapeake Bay. He lays a 500-metre trot line with fresh bull's lips for bait. The crabs love them. Then he turns his vessel around, runs along the line and scoops up a local delicacy into baskets which, when full, contain a bushel of crabs.
This facility in upstate New York produces what's billed as environmentally friendly packaging material. Eben Bayer is the co-founder of Ecovative and one of a handful of entrepreneurs driving the trend of compostable products.
McAllen is not only the most obese, but also the poorest city in the U.S. Poor people are much more susceptible to becoming obese. McAllen's streets are lined with fast food restaurants offering cheap, filling meals.
We bought $10 worth of fruit and vegetables at the market here in McAllen. As you can see, it's hardly enough to feed a family of 4. Now this is $10 worth of fast food, 4 hamburgers, fries, soft drinks. So it's easy to see how parents trying to feed their families on tight budgets are almost forced to choose fast food full of sugar, salt, and fat.
In this East New York City neighborhood, crime and poverty are rampant. But many young men say it's the New York Police Department that they fear the most.
How you doing?
I'm cool.
All right, all right, all right.
In fact, some were afraid to give their last names when describing their dealings with police.
Dealing with a rise in murder. On this edition of Inside Story Americas, we look at what's behind the dramatic increase in Chicago this year and what can be done to address it. Hello, I'm Shihab Rutansi. For years, the murder rate in Chicago had been decreasing. But this year has been different. Through the end of July, the number of murders in the U.S.'s third largest city was more than 25% higher than it was during that same time period in 2011. After a stray bullet killed 7-year-old Heaven Sutton outside her home, Chicago's mayor pointed to the city's gangs as the root of the problem. Community organizers, though, say the rise in murders is a result of failed urban policies. Systemic change is needed, and not simply a police crackdown, they argue. It's also important to note that it's too soon to make a judgment on whether this is the beginning of a long-term trend. In fact, July in Chicago saw fewer murders than in the same month last year.
I mean, the suspicion that one gets is without the other elements of systemic change, all you get then is a crackdown which increases mistrust between the police and communities, alienates more people because, frankly, such programs are so open to abuse by the police force.
Well, I have to say this, that stop and frisk has always been a way that professional law enforcement has been taught. And police officers always have had the right to stop and frisk. The problem has been is that they have not been doing it, and as a result of that, it has led to this drive-by shootings. I stop and I frisk a car, I find a gun. I stop and I frisk individuals in an area where there are gang conflicts at, I find a gun and I take that gun off the street and I incarcerate the person that has it.
Christina Kirchner had been diagnosed with thyroid cancer in December, and on Wednesday she had surgery to have the gland removed. Now a government spokesman says that when her thyroid was analysed, it turned out not to be cancerous. Teresa Bow has more.
For many of Christina Kirchner's supporters, who have been camped outside the hospital for days, the news that she did not have cancer came as a welcome surprise.